Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Welcome to the webinar, Smart and Sustainable. We have some great speakers lined up for you today. So really looking forward to this webinar and looking forward to having you as well. I'll go ahead and get started. Just don't want to take up too much of your time. So hopefully you're in the right place. We're talking about circular economy today, and also how to create local economic growth from circularity. We have some really good speakers lined up for you today. We're talking first about some opportunities. We're going to dive into some case studies from experts and specialists from their cities, what they've learned about circular economy, how they're implementing it in their cities, and also how that can foster economic growth. Without further ado, we'll get into it. This is me, by the way. I'm Tamlin Shimizu. I'm the Global Partnerships and Communications Lead at Babel Smart Cities. And if you want to connect with me, my QR code is right there. First off, I want to get to know more about you all. I know webinars are a little bit impersonal sometimes. You're just numbers behind the screen. I want to encourage you to use that chat function, to use the Q&A. Ask us questions. I promise I will prioritize your questions over mine, and we will get them all answered for you. So use that, get engaged, be active with us today. Good. Now I'm going to, go on to Slido, and I'll ask you to please scan this QR code. I know that maybe you're tired of scanning QR codes at this point, but please go ahead and scan the QR code and tell us which country are you joining us from so we get to know you a little bit better. I think we have on our panels, at least, I know we have, so we're joining from Germany, we're joining from the US, we're joining from Spain, we're joining from Scotland. I'm missing people probably, but we have a lot in Netherlands, of course. Matt, our colleague at ICF, is joining from Netherlands as well. Good. Ooh, Canada, another one. Thanks for joining us so early also, everyone out in the Americas. So good, good, good. Any other ones to jump on? Netherlands is winning. So got a lot of Dutch influence. Okay, last chance to tell us. Good. All right. Oh, we'll wait for a couple participants who are typing right now. Ooh, Bolivia. I did not expect that. Bulgaria. Yes. Now we're getting more diversity in here. I like it. Bangladesh. Thank you for also joining. Yeah. We're covering many continents, so I'm pretty happy with that. All right. Sounds good. I won't take too much more of your time on this. But let's go into actually, sorry. I will then give the floor over to my colleague at ICF. He's Robert Bell. He's a co-founder of the Intelligent Community Forum. So Robert Bell, the floor is yours.
First of all, thank you very much, Tamla. It's a great pleasure to be here, joining early, as you said, from the United States. But I made it. I made it. So that's the good news. And I appreciate a few
Happy
minutes.
to have you.
I appreciate taking a few minutes of everyone's time to tell them just a little bit about this thing called the Intelligent Community Forum, which I will do as soon as I can locate it. There we are. So we are here, of course, talking about smart and sustainable. That is the theme for today. It's also an important theme for the Intelligent Community Forum. Who are we, if you're not familiar with us? Well, we are basically a research, training, and coaching organization. We've been doing this for about 20 years in something called the Community Accelerator Strategy. And it's a strategy for economic and community development, and I'll talk more about that in a moment, but in particular, development in this very challenging digital century that we live in, which has become, our economy has become increasingly dominated by digital, to the extent in which we're having to adapt to it as opposed to having it adapt to us. And this is all evidence-based work we do. We've done studies of about 200 cities, counties, and regions around the world in order to develop this approach to development. And you can learn more about it using that URL you see on the screen. What we do every day is, well, we have worked out this methodology so we can do very objective assessments of readiness and progress to move forward in this digital century, as I said, and then follow that up with expert consulting on the strategy, the policies, and the programs that actually bring it about, again, based upon the experience of a large number of communities around the world. Using the same basic metrics, we can certify communities, cities, and regions as intelligent communities that offer economic development value, right? That's the great thing about certifications. It means someone objectively looked at your operations, your policies, your programs, and said, they're on the right track. As well as something that is important to me, which is validating the fine work of the people who are making this happen on the ground, and also access to continuous improvement. And more information is available at that URL. And then we train community leaders, staff, and partners in doing this thing and creating the change that they seek. And it's a set of online courses illustrated by case studies, videos, et cetera, teaching how to do this, again, based upon the examples brought to us by a number of terrific places. And finally, the most fun we have, which is our international award program. We've been doing it a long time, providing communities with a global stage for their achievements. You see some very happy people there on your screen. They are the representatives of the Vietnamese province of Xinjiang, who are joining forces with Peter Portain. You're going to be hearing from him, who's helping to guide development in that, again, based upon the same principles that we're talking about here. So when we say the Intelligent Community Forum, what on earth are we talking about? Well, again, we're talking about this digital century and how communities work across 6 specific factors that we've identified. And that work is about creating innovative, growing, and inclusive economies. And I stress that last word, inclusive economies, because so many of the rewards of the digital century have gone to a very tiny minority of the innovators. And we don't think that's the right direction. And if you do that properly, that development of innovative, growing, and inclusive economies, you're in the position now to support social connection, as opposed to allowing social connections to wither and die because, again, we're all going online instead of working together in communities and taking advantage of the rich and meaningful cultures that every place has, but that, again, are at risk in an increasingly globalized place. So these are the things that make a great place to live, a great place to work, a great place to raise a family, to start a business, to launch a career, and to welcome the next generation. And ultimately, of course, it is going to be about digital. That's inescapable. And so instead of being on the receiving end, if you will, of digital innovation, as so many places are, we work with communities to help them tap the enormous potential of technology to be good for the community, to serve the community's needs. This is this community accelerator strategy. I'm certainly not going to go into detail on it, but it consists of these 6 factors: broadband connectivity, which is our new infrastructure that you have to have; knowledge work, the ability to take that connectivity, that technology, and turn it into economic value because of the knowledge and skills in your workforce; innovation, where 80% of all economic growth comes from. And I'm talking about private sector innovation. Very often in the government context, we end up sort of getting wrapped around the axle of the smart city. And all we're going to talk about is whether or not we can measure how much traffic we have or the water in our water systems. And we forget about the fact that we're actually here to create jobs and prosperity. And if you do all those things, you get this cycle, this rising cycle of economic growth. It's a pretty straightforward formula. You'll see it in a lot of places around the world, but it's not the end of the story, because you're now going to be taking your community through major changes that are unavoidable, and engagement, broadening, deepening engagement is extremely important to bringing the community with you, in fact, to making them the champions of that change. And fortunately, digital provides you with tools that make it possible in ways that have never been available before. Digital inclusion, because a significant portion of our citizens are not going to know how to come with us on this journey themselves, and they need help doing it. And it's very, very important we give it, because otherwise we're creating yet new barriers to marginalized citizens and leaving them further out in the cold. And finally, sustainability, which is, of course, is our topic today. And I'm not going to go into detail on that here, but instead going to just show you basically what, why we care about it. And if you do those things, you are producing those social connections, that cultural strength that's going to guide your community into a better future than it may be facing today. So when we talk about sustainability at ICF, we're talking about three specific things. First of all, being green, right? We obviously all need to adapt our habits, our purchasing, our ways of doing business, our ways of governing ourselves to deal with the fact that we are poisoning our planet with far more carbon dioxide than it can handle. So being green becomes basically a responsibility of world citizenship. But it's also a marvelous opportunity at the local level to engage your population because people care deeply about the quality of life of the place called home, even if they've only been there for months, right? They already are invested in that, and they're willing to step forward and help out to make it better. And then a third thing, which is not very often discussed, at least in my opinion, I think it's not discussed enough, which is the enormous opportunity that's going to come out of sustainability. We're talking about billions and trillions and hundreds of trillions of dollars of potential investment to fix these problems. And that's only going to happen. It's not going to come out of taxpayers' pockets. It's going to come out of opportunity tapped by business to do things. If we create the market, we know that it will be served. And so we really urge communities to think about how they can tie their economic future to this huge market that's going to be developing. And the last thing I'll leave you with is the other thing that I've started thinking a great deal about is that we know that there's already a tremendous amount of climate change baked into our world. And it's going to be a shock for every single place in the world. I happen to live in a very favored one on the East Coast of the United States. We don't really get too much extreme weather, but other parts of my country, oh my goodness, are suffering already in big ways that are even convincing the American public that it's time to take this seriously. So as communities deal with this, they're going to need resilience. They're going to need to think seriously about how to protect their people, their businesses, their employers, and their institutions from those climate shocks. So that's it for me. I'll give it back to Tamlin, and I appreciate a few minutes of your time.
Thanks so much, Robert, for setting the stage there for us. I want to welcome the next speaker onto the stage to talk a little bit about the ICF Strategic Advisors role and also a little bit more about the 2024 award cycle to give you that opportunity to learn about that. Then we'll get into diving into the concept of circular economy. So Peter Pertain, he's the director at Eindhoven International Project Office, a strategic advisor at ICF, and the expansion team lead at Babel Smart Cities. So welcome, Peter.
Well, thank you, Tamlin, and thank you for having me here this afternoon in Eindhoven, this morning in New York, and this evening already in Asia, as I also saw some friends from Bangladesh among the audience. It is my privilege to share with you a little on elaborating on Robert's story and also the main question, how do we really put this into practice? And that is actually where ICF and IPO Babel joined forces, signing IPO and Babel to be their strategic advisors, but also for the implementation of some of the initiatives that Robert just shared with you. So, and I want to do that in a way that I'll share some of the experience we have in Asia, because I strongly believe that the economic transformation strongly can help the road towards sustainability on a city level. If we want to transform and make that big cultural change in terms of thinking, we also have to drive people in the right direction, but we also have to provide an economic perspective that it's not like a challenge or a hurdle we're not going to overcome, but it is also creating a new future for those who want to work in this perspective. So what we did, and I have that experience from Eindhoven, I was here in the team that in Brainport managed to get awarded Intelligent Community in 2011. And in the meantime, Brainport Eindhoven has, although in a relatively small province with only 250,000 inhabitants, we managed to develop into one of the global hotspots for the semiconductor industry. And creating that ecosystem for economic growth went hand in hand with our transformation towards a green and sustainable region. But that does not only apply in Europe. And we have been successfully applying these principles in Asia, especially in the south of Vietnam, where we had the privilege of working with the regional government of Binh Nhung. And the regional government of Binh Nhung obviously applied and also confirms with the national policies on climate adaptation. Vietnam signed the Paris Agreement, and that has been pushed down to the regional level, where the local province now is also applying these regulations to foreign investors. And together with the Binh Nhung government, we have been able to attract a different type of investment recently. So Lego decided to build their biggest factory in the world, a carbon neutral factory in Vietnam, and more particular in Binh Nhung. So this creating a new green perspective for the regional economy, moving away from the traditional low-cost type of labor industries with a relatively high ecological footprint. And what we see happening in Vietnam is that by doing and choosing this direction, attracting a new kind of foreign investment, these international companies all necessarily applying with international CSR regulation. So they are looking for these new green areas where local government is already deploying these new regulations in the way you treat your waste, treat your water, only apply the renewable sources for your local energy supply. So this is a good example how you can use foreign investment in a new green framework to make sure that we're also creating a different type of job perspective. And by doing this, and we're also applying the principle of the inclusive society, we're also driving schools and the international universities in the same direction, because these new investors will require a different type of jobs, higher education, applying new AI, applying new type of production technologies. So that drives the whole knowledge development of the region in a positive way. That increases the level of the value in the economy, and that also allows to eventually pay a higher level of income for local jobs. So this is a way that Asia is using to actually break away and break through the middle income gap, to make sure that by introducing new technologies in their manufacturing, they also can cope with the increasing demand for higher paid jobs. And eventually, if you do that in an integrated way, and you also create this inclusive perspective for local society, you also end up with this kind of recognition. And this is the type of recognition that Binh Nhung received after 6-7 years of hard work, using the principles of what early they helped Eindhoven to break away from their past. And I had the privilege of, together with the Vietnamese delegation, receiving this award last October in New York. And that opened up a new era of international awareness, exposure. So now new international companies are visiting Binh Nhung and looking for that green economic miracle. So actually the whole engagement with ICF strongly pushed their future economy. And that is where we also, as Babel IPO, really can help be of assistance to you. Because applying the ICF principles and using the ICF Community Accelerator strategy, we can easily use to do some simple self-assessment and to see how you perform against your peers around the world. And we can also easily derive an action program out of that, how we can step by step make improvements that make you on your road towards this sustainability. So that benchmarking really helps you in mapping the areas where we need to strengthen or need to improve. And at the same time, the participation in the ICF Awards program brings you international exposure that eventually will help you to also attract a different type of foreign investment. So what can we do? We are an impactful and engaging partner to ICF. We are their European and Asian strategic advisors. So we can help you to support and submit your application to join this award cycle, and also get the outcome of this self-assessment at the early stage. And in addition to that, in the next step, we can help you to build new action programs for economic transformation on a real practical level, implement the policies and also the programs that help you take similar steps as Binh Nhung has been doing quite recently, and that Eindhoven has done already in 2011. So I think, Tamerlane, that is my brief sharing for this afternoon, and I'll give back to you.
Thanks so much, Peter. Thanks for sharing your expertise. Really interesting case study also in Vietnam. So we're moving on quickly to one of my favorite people to announce to the stage. He's our CEO and founder of Basel Smart Cities, Alexander Schmidt. Alex, you have the floor.
Happily and certainly the best, the loveliest person to be announced by. So thanks, Tamlin, for this, and thanks also for the great presentations from the previous speakers. Very honored to be here and present at the beginning another small case study from the work that we have been doing, especially together with Peter as well. That this kind of economic transformation in a green and a sustainable way does not only work in parts of the world. Now we have seen an example from Asia, but it actually really works around the world. So allow me to quickly start with a small intro on the work that we have done actually together with Peter, Babel, IPO, again in Ireland. In Northern Ireland, to be exact, which is basically the area around Belfast, which makes more than half of the economy of the country. And we started also about 4.5 years ago in talking about, economic progress, sustainable development, creating a new post-industrial economy, but in the right way. So bringing sustainable lighthouse projects into the work, talking about how the society can grow in a circular, but especially in a sustainable and affluent environment, not just also within Belfast, so the city, but also in the regions around this. And this is maybe the slide which I want to keep on for 30 seconds. These developments, as they are being rolled out across the world, and as they are becoming a necessity really for all of us to provide a good living environment for citizens. They are often centered around urban hubs, which is kind of the current status quo, but due to digital technologies, due to the enablement also of rural societies, we can actually spread this economic benefits out of urban centers also into more remote regions. And this is just one of the maps that shows how we set up a kind of diverse economic growth scenario, diverse activities, not just within one economic center, but actually spread throughout a whole region, in that part half of Northern Ireland. So something very important for those of you that don't work or operate directly out of an economic center, but actually also think about developments in rural areas, in upcoming areas. This kind of approach that we are talking about here, these kinds of mechanisms that are being applied here, they work in rural and in urban areas. So I think the core problem that we have in everything that we are touching here is that we are not moving fast enough into the direction, and that actually realities, let it be inflation, let it be uncertainty, actually are catching up to us. So what you see here is actually a picture of the city of Berlin at night. It's a couple of years old now, but still over 30 years after the reunification of Berlin. So you might know that Berlin for about 50 years was divided into two halves, an eastern and a western part, by a wall between the Soviet eastern part and the western part. And you can still see today where this wall actually went through. So because here on the right side, the lighting is kind of orange, the normal old light bulbs, and on the left side of Burns it's more than newer LED lights. So after 30 years after, we are still not having kind of an alignment on that simple technology, which is lighting. So this shows us, in combination with the time that we have left actually to reach the Paris Agreement goals, to reach the goals that we have set ourselves, how much faster we have to become. So in Europe, we have the ambition, we actually have the law to become fully climate neutral by 2050. 100 municipalities have signed a deal to become fully climate neutral by 2030. So we actually have only 27 years for the whole continent to achieve this. And the one thing I want to give to you as a kind of a thinking thing is that it's, yes, technology will help us. Technology is going to be an important part in achieving all of this. It provides a lot of better insights, a lot of better capabilities, but we have to do it the right way because it's approaching all our different sectors. So we shouldn't just look at what application areas we find it for technologies, but we actually should look at what do these technologies really do for you. And that's the benefit that we have working across countries, actually across continents in this collaboration here, where we can see commonalities between what different cities are doing, and we can see differences of what different cities are doing. So there we will see, if you actually compare different types of projects across different cities, across different continents, you will always see that there are some elements which are identical and some elements which make them locally grounded and locally footed. And understanding these kinds of things helps you actually really get the most out of it, spend less money with more outcome, just being more efficient. And that's kind of what I wanted to share with you. We're available to talk in 20 different languages to you on those transformations. We're happy to support you in this journey. And anyways, no matter what you're doing after this call, we wish you great progress and a lot of speed in those activities to come, because we all know we need it. Thank you a lot. Thanks a lot for your attention.
Thanks so much, Alex, for those insights. Really interesting to compare the different case studies from across Europe, of course. And with that, we're going to move to Spain. We're all very jealous of how warm it is in Malaga right now. And for that, I'm going to welcome Luis onto stage. He's a former General Director of Environment and Sustainability at the City of Malaga. He's also a representative on the National Waste Coordination Commission at the Spanish Federation of Cities and Provinces. Welcome, Luis.
Hello, good morning. Thank you very much for your invitation, both to ICF and to Babel.
Anytime.
It's a great honor to be here. Okay, my idea is to do a very brief presentation, bringing down to earth what all this thing about circular economy means at a municipal level. And for that, my background, as you mentioned, I am one of the two representatives of the Federation of Cities and Provinces in Spain within the National Commission on Waste Management and Circular Economy, where the national strategy on circular economy was drawn a couple of years ago. And also I'm a member of the group of experts on circular economy and waste management within that Federation of Cities in Spain, where we have also created the national local strategy on circular economy, a sort of a model or a template that all cities and towns in Spain can use as a base to develop their own circular economy strategy. So my idea today is to give you some ideas as to what we have done in Malaga in this respect, and what it means in practical terms, and what are the consequences of that. Malaga, to give you some data, some very quick background, is the sixth city in Spain. We have about 600,000 inhabitants, and Malaga, it's been always in the forefront of sustainability, the idea of being a smart city, and having in general the environment and sustainability have one of the most important policies within the actual government and local policies. So we already have some sort of a name, both nationally and internationally. I would like to also point out that together with Gothenburg, we were appointed as the European capital for smart tourism in 2020, which was then, for reasons you can imagine, it was extended to 2021. So for those 2 years, we were together with Gothenburg, the European capital for smart tourism, because Malaga, the province of Malaga, it's one of the tourism hubs of Spain since the early 1960s. So tourism, as you will see, is one of the most important issues that we consider when we analyze all these questions. As you can read here, well, circular economy, we're not going to tell you what it is, but I always like to point out that when we talk about circular economy, especially at a local level, we tend to talk too much about waste and municipal waste and waste management, whereas, as you can read here, we shall try always to focus on the idea that we have to redesign and eco-design our products in a different way, so we avoid to have that sort of waste that we have had until this day. So the problem is that as a city and as city governments, we don't have that much influence as to how products are designed. So we have to focus on what we can do at a local level to implement this circular economy strategy and the influence that it can have on the local society and the local enterprises. Next slide, please. Thank you. So briefly, what are the benefits that having a municipal circular economy strategy can have? We can optimize our resources. We, of course, will aim at reduce our municipal waste and the waste that we have to manage at the city level, which is always one of the costs, the highest cost that we have at any city, and also to create that sort of community engagement. Next slide, please. So I will briefly tell you what we have done to create that local circular economy strategy in the city of Malaga, which is something that is required by the Andalusian circular economy law, which is the region that we belong to in the south of Spain, that was approved last year, and which gave 2 years for all cities to create and draw their own circular economy strategy. What we have done in the different phases, as you can see, we have interviewed all the key individuals in the organization. We're talking about circular economy of the city council, okay, not the city. We have drafted the approval and diagnose based on the gather information. We have worked on all the definition of the strategy. We have been meeting with all the technicians of the municipality, and we have given them information and courses and created awareness about circular economy because this is a very important issue. I mean, sometimes the environmental departments, even the economy departments, they start working on circular economy strategies and they don't realize that they have to do that sort of awareness program where they bring on board all the employees of the municipality, because this is a work that needs to be reaching all the different departments on the different municipal companies and so on. So it's not just one department that has to pull the car, but everybody has to be on board and working together toward that idea of creating a local circular economy. Next slide, please. So after finishing that process of diagnosis, we created that strategy. We're still pending approval. We hope to do it in the few weeks. And we created around 7 strategic assets. We work on consumption, of course, waste management, sustainability, urban spaces, and sustainable mobility, which is very important at a durable level. Cross-cutting or any policies that regards different departments, different areas, different company, anything that is transversal needs to be analyzed. Circular procurement and public purchasing, which is, I would say, the most important part of this local strategy, and I will develop right ahead. And also, in the case of Malaga, we decided that it was very important to have also an access dealing with circular tourism. As you can imagine, as I mentioned, tourism, it's a very important part of our economic scheme. So we had to work on that and make sure that this is a sector that embraces circularity and circular economy as well. And also, finally, we created an additional axis regarding digitalization. I mean, everything that it's in the public sector needs to work on its digitalization, but it also has to be dealing with helping with this work towards sustainability within the city. We, of course, the idea is, although this is a municipal organization strategy, we hope that it will have an influence in the rest of the city and the different sectors, the different stakeholders, and it will work sort of an engine towards of creating that that movement that will affect the whole society, the whole city, all the enterprises, or the different associations and so on, and of course also the general public. Next slide, please. Okay, so one of the products that have come out of this work is the creation of a circular public procurement guide. This is a guide that has been issued and it's been delivered to all the technicians, all the civil servants, all the people, all the employees working at different departments, different companies, and so on, who prepare public tenders for the procurement of services or products or anything. The idea is to give them the information, the material, the data, so they can include all these circularity criteria in any public tender that they might put forward. So this is an example that we.
Unless it's my internet, I think we lost Luis.
Yes, yes.
Okay, I don't know if it was mine or his. Yeah, it seems like we lost him, unfortunately. The struggles of doing the online events are real. Sorry about that, everyone. But yeah, Rebecca, we can go ahead and start with yours until we get Luis back. I hate to cut him short also, but we'll go ahead and continue with you, Rebecca. Rebecca is working for a Glasgow Chamber of Commerce within the Circular Glasgow team. So welcome, Rebecca.
Thank you very much, Tamlin, and thank you very much for inviting me along. It's lovely to meet you, the extended team, and everybody that's joining us today. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Just share my screen with you. So for those of you who are not familiar with Glasgow, Glasgow is Scotland's largest and financially productive city, comprising of more than a third of Scotland's economic output and employment. And we're currently working towards our really ambitious climate targets, which include reaching net zero by 2030 and becoming a fully circular city by 2045. As for Glasgow Chamber of Commerce itself, we are a not-for-profit membership organisation, and we were established back in 1783, so we are very old. And we were designed to champion the city of Glasgow and to support our business community. I think we are pretty unique, and actually just hearing about Louis and the work that they're doing at local authority level. Glasgow, the Chamber of Commerce has been very much the catalytic organisation in terms of supporting the city's circular revolution. Most cities working to adopt the circular economy, as we've heard, are led by their local authorities, with economic impact very much at the heart of what they do. We're a slightly different model in that the Chamber's role is predominantly focused on engaging at business level. So we encourage businesses to adopt the circular economy and sustainable strategies across everything that they do. And I suppose this activity in turn positions the city of Glasgow as a city that takes its climate change really seriously. And that in turn attracts investment, which then supports the wider economic growth of the city of Glasgow. Of course, we couldn't do it by ourselves, and we work very much in partner with our local authority, Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, also Zero Waste Scotland, part of the Scottish Government, and our Netherlands friends, Circle Economy. I guess our purpose is very much to work across the business sector, all businesses included. And as I said, we encourage them to adopt sustainable and circular strategies. And I suppose this small, short presentation will very much look at the journey that we've been on through the inception of Circular Glasgow right through to our current ambitions for the city, promoting prosperity and enhancing quality of life for all. So where did it start? 2016, we were the second global city to carry out a circular city scan, and we were second to the Netherlands. The scan conducted an analysis of Glasgow's economy, political will, and we also looked at materials running throughout the city. And from this, we were able to identify some real tangible opportunities that were unique to the city of Glasgow. And the report demonstrated there were three key areas, and that was education, health, and manufacturing. Now, as we're a small team, we're really keen to focus on one area of manufacturing, and that was food and drink. And what the report showed was there was a new innovative technology around food and drink, which was bread to beer. So what did that look like? Essentially, what came out the back of this report was our very first pilot project, where we teamed up with Jaw Brew, a local craft brewery, and a local baker's Olds. And essentially what we did was we created a beer made from surplus and waste bread. Why that was so successful? Well, let's face it, we can all relate to beer, certainly, and we can relate to bread. And it was a great story to get people understanding and talking about what the circular economy was, but most importantly, also what it meant for business and what those business benefits were, from opening up new revenue streams to generating significant savings. So we used this case study as an opportunity to spread the word through PR, events, and influencer dinners. And then off the back of that work, what we were really keen to do was to expand the opportunity across the wider business sector. And we were keen to give Glasgow businesses a real handrail, a framework, if you like, to support them in adopting their own circular strategies. Through this, we worked with a circular economy in the Netherlands to create a portfolio of tools to support them. And these tools were employed to gather data on different businesses, looking at how best we support their unique transition to a more circular economy. And we did this through one-to-one assessments, through workshops and networking. In 2018, we were very lucky to host the Circular Economy Hotspot in Scotland. And the event offered us a unique opportunity to showcase Scotland's progressive circular work to, in particular, an international audience, including circular experts, entrepreneurs, policymakers, and investors. Also at the hotspot, Glasgow City Council used this as an opportunity to announce that they would create a circular economy route map for the city. And this was published in 2020. In 2019, we partnered with London and IKEA, and we launched the Circular Glasgow Network. And this was very much designed to bring businesses together, to connect, to build, and to share knowledge of the circular economy and its role in allowing Glasgow to reach its net zero targets. I'm sure most of you will be aware that in 2021, Glasgow hosted COP26, and we had in attendance over 200 party states from across the globe. So having worked hard and built a solid and influential foundation for circular action in the city, the Chamber capitalised on this experience, creating 4 clear themed goals that we look to accomplish both during but also after COP26. And that was strategic leadership, business engagement, international trade, and educational legacy. And since COP, Circular Glasgow Network has exploded. We've really grown. We've got now over 350 businesses and partners all working together to implement circular solutions right across the city. The Chamber has also developed a whole portfolio of programs under the banner of Climate Chamber. Congress of Business. This is a business-led festival, which we now run annually, supporting certainly last year, we had over 400 local and international businesses, all brought together to act on the Glasgow Chamber pacts that came off the back of COP26. Legacy work includes supporting the city's Green Investment Prospectus and Glasgow City Council, and we were certainly over in Dubai, COP28, brokering links for future city investors. Step Up to Net Zero. Through this programme, we supported 67 businesses in their journey to reach net zero, enabling people to gain work experience, upskill, and gain employment. And we're delighted off the back of that scheme that 33% of the participants stayed with their host business, while 70% of participants went on to positive destinations. Grants for Recycling, a campaign led by the city's hospitality sector this time, and it was designed to highlight the issue of global food waste while creating a circular solution for used coffee grounds right across the city. And I'm delighted to inform you that in November, we found out that this particular project has been officially nominated as an entry for the Earthshot Prize in 2024, so this year. So all these programs and business engagement initiatives have been designed to very much foster knowledge exchange and peer-to-peer, accelerating citywide adoption of circular economy and attracting inward investment. But obviously we can't do it ourselves, and we welcome collaboration for those of you who share our ambitions and our values. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tammin.
Thank you, Rebecca. Really, really interesting stuff, especially anything related to beer and coffee. I'm sure it's easier to get citizen participation on those topics. So I love those. I love those initiatives. For this, I'd love to call Luis. We have you back. Can you also come back in? Is your internet okay for? Yes, we have you.
Yeah, sorry,
Perfect.
sorry. My system, I think, crashed. I don't know. It's a new laptop, so I'll probably have to turn it back.
Yeah, return it fast. All right. So I really want to get into a few more questions and dig a little bit deeper with you both. We did get one question from the audience that I want to start off with, and get your input on. From Rokon, I hope I am not butchering your name completely, but in less developed countries, how do you create a local market of knowledge and ideas for improving profitability of production through reducing energy consumption, waste, and pollution? What do you think is kind of your tips in the more developing countries? What do you think could be the answers here?
Well, it's a difficult question. It's something that always comes up when we talk about sustainability and sustainable development at a global level. And it's always like, yes, I mean, all the developed countries, we have reached a certain level, and now we're talking about doing things in a more sustainable way. But we expect that countries that are not so developed also do that, which is not always easy or simple. No, so I mean, my advice is to apply the same that we also advise our local businesses and local companies, and the idea that any investment you do in working in a more sustainable way and applying circular economy principles in your production and the way you do business is not going to be a cost, and it's going to be basically an investment, and you're going to have pretty soon an effect on your bottom line. And the reality is that consumers are yearning for more sustainable products and more sustainable companies, and they're a bit tired of greenwashing as well. So any effort that is done in that respect, it's going to have a return. You're going to have a better result in your operation, and it's going to become a commercial advantage. So it's not something that you should dwell about, because that is really the reality, I think.
Yeah, and I actually want to welcome Peter onto stage. I think he actually would have some really interesting insights on this, having worked on these topics with many lesser developed countries. Peter, do you have any input on this?
Well, first of all, I happen to know the Rokon who asked the question, because I met him last year in Dhaka. I think Bangladesh is a good example of a country where international companies like H&M are now starting to pursue their responsibilities towards CSR. So they also have to comply with the international regulations. So more and more we see pressure that they have to implement along their supply chain all kind of measures that make them in compliance with the regulations around sustainable and also responsible entrepreneurship. So first of all, I think that applying and implementing these international laws makes sense, because then the international investors are pushing that towards their local suppliers. So eventually it will reach and also benefit the end of the supply chain. That is where you mostly find the lowest labor and also the worst conditions where people used to work. So for one, I think that is a good way to go. Second, that at the moment, Babel and IPO are developing a lookalike platform like the Babel platform, but then to be applied on Bangladesh level, which will unlock experience, knowledge, good practices and technologies that help a local apparel industry, local fashion manufacturers to apply and to also to get note the international developments and also how they can deploy that on a local level. So and that is something we're developing on behalf of the Bangladesh Apparel Association. So that's a sector nationwide organization that at least is starting to share this kind of knowledge, and that will not change the world there overnight. But these are all, I think, relevant measures that can help to push in the right direction.
Thanks for that insight, Peter. I have a question for you, Rebecca, as well, on a little bit about your projects and how we can measure the impact of them. From your experience, how can we, in practice, really see what the impact is and make the changes that we need to make to, scale these up, etc.?
Yeah, I think evaluation and measuring of any project is absolutely critical. I mean, certainly with Grounds for Recycling, the initiative which I led in terms of collecting the used coffee grounds. For me, I was very keen to go down this route because I wanted something quite visual. We talk about carbon, we talk about circular economy, we talk about net zero, but it's really hard for normal people just to get their head in the game and go, what's that look like? So, I mean, in the space of 20 days, the campaign ran in partnership with the UCI World Cycling Championships. And for any of you that are cyclists out there, cyclists absolutely love their coffee. So there was a great opportunity to raise the profile of the campaign. And then we collected the coffee from 60 participating venues and using an e-cargo bike, and we took it to the local botanic gardens. 20 days, we collected 4.7 tons of coffee. So visually, you could see what that actually looked like, but it also allowed the University of Glasgow to actually start breaking down in terms of actually what does that mean in terms of if we were to use that, what we did incorporate it, we are incorporating into compost, what does that mean in terms of carbon capture? I think as well, for me, it's really important that, we're using the language and we're using examples of what people can just get their head around. So most of us have an understanding of coffee, and that economic and the evaluation is then really important to then demonstrate how that can be translated into other projects and other waste streams. So that was a rather rambly response, but hopefully that gives you a better sort of flavour in terms of where my thinking was with that particular project and how we captured it and how that then support other projects going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anyone else have any thoughts on that point to spin off from Rebecca?
Well, I was thinking during these last two sets of comments, and thank you, Peter. I really liked your analysis of work in a market like Bangladesh. Back in the 1970s, which is now a very long time ago, Peter Drucker, he's now dead, but he was the most famous management consultant in the world. He wrote this very interesting piece about DuPont, the enormous US chemical manufacturer. And this was long before, unfortunately, Bhopal. But nonetheless, DuPont had an amazing safety record through most of its history. And he said one of the reasons that they have it is because they're constantly looking at the waste stream that comes out of their work and trying to figure out how to make money from it, how to turn it into new products. So, there's unbelievable degrees of waste. And this is a bit philosophical, but there's huge amounts of waste, I'm sure, coming out of the apparel industry in Bangladesh, for instance. Well, where are the money-making opportunities in that? Because once you create once you create a market, the things are, you don't need quite all the incredible ingenuity that Glasgow has shown in getting people to pay attention to something. If it was a way to recycle ground coffee, as I know one Taiwanese apparel manufacturer started somehow processing it into a component in the shirts they manufactured, then, life gets more interesting for everybody.
Thanks for the comment there, Robert. We're running out of time, unfortunately. I wish I had another half an hour at least with you all. So I want Rebecca and Luis, if everyone basically comes out of this webinar and they forget everything that was said, they forget all the presentations. Hopefully that doesn't happen, but if that happens, if you want to leave them with one item to take with them today to say, hey, this is what you should keep in mind when implementing and accelerating circular economy projects, what would you leave them with?
Well, I will suggest that we don't have to be in a hurry. We have to realize that the linear economy, it's the base of the market economy that has been working very efficiently in creating consumers doing the things that they need to do in order for the linear economy to function. And now we want to change everything. And that's not going to be easy. And if we pretend we try to make it fast or going to change everything from one year to the other, we might create the opposite feeling from the consumers and the population in general. So we have to be aware that it's something that has taken many years to be the way it is. So we need time. Of course, there are deadlines and there are targets that we have set forward, as it was mentioned, but we have to realize that we have to change things that are very much ingrained in the people's mind. I mean, when we talk about circular economy, I always mention the fact that one of the key issues that has to be addressed is the idea of private property. I don't need to own a car. I don't need to own a dishwasher. I don't need to own everything that I have. And we are going towards the service economy. And that is something that it's very hard for consumers because they're used to owning things, because that's what we have educated them for many years. So that is something that has to be very much present in the minds of all the politicians and all the city governments and so on, that we have to work in that sense, and we have to change consumer habits. We have to change their behavior, and we also have to work in their awareness. So because consumers at the end are going to be the ones moving everything. If manufacturers are going to change the way they design and they manufacture products, they will do so because the consumer starts to ask for different products. And I will finish with one particular example that we have been implemented in Málaga. We have a program in general dedicated to awareness regarding sustainability, environmental, so on. We call it the Green Passport. It's dedicated to working with the school students at different levels. And one of the itineraries, it's called I Change My Consumption Habits. And what we do is we go with the students from a class or two classes to the supermarket, and we teach them how to purchase product having circular economy in mind. So when they choose a particular product and one particular brand instead of a different one, it's because it's based on the circularity of that product, because the way it is, the packaging, the waste that's going to get generated, how easy it will be to recycle that product and so on. And that is something that has to be on a very massive level to be effective.
Great comment, Luis. Rebecca, your final words to close us out, essentially.
My final words. to remember is don't think circular economy, think semi-circular. Just think about that one simple step and get started. That's it.
Very well put and great way to end. Then it's going to be a bit awkward that I put this final slide on because the slide says keep thinking circular instead of saying keep thinking semi-circular, but we can just edit that in quickly. But yes, I'm putting Peter's face on for this final slide because if any of these topics, if the 2024 awards sound really interesting for you, please get in contact with us. We're always happy to chat. And we're always happy to have a conversation and create more exchange around topics like circular economy. So with that, I leave you. Keep thinking semi-circular. Thank you all for coming.